Thank you to comicbookdirect.com for sponsoring today's video.
Messed up moments in comics that made us go, what the f? Part 141. This is Jennifer Walters, She-Hulk. And it kinda goes without saying, she's hooked up with quite a few superheroes. But there's one that she absolutely denies having any relations with. And that, my friends, is no other than the supervillain himself, Juggernaut, otherwise known as Professor Xavier's stepbrother. That's a story for another time. Like, okay, don't get me wrong, she's definitely hooked up with other superheroes. For instance, she did the horizontal tango with Thanos' brother, Star Fox, otherwise known as Eros, gave it her all with the Greek demigod Hercules, may have done the hibbity-dibbity with Thor. Oh yeah, and in Old Man Logan, she definitely did it with her cousin Bruce Banner. We don't talk about that one. But after being rejected by Wolverine after he said he doesn't want Juggernaut's sloppy seconds, she is irate and says they never did anything. Well, in X-Men issue 435, Juggernaut says he has nuanced takes on multiple issues, including women's rights, which is apparently all it took to get her back to the smush room.
This video is sponsored by comicbookdirect.com. I like comic books. Like a lot. And I'm sure you do too. That's where today's sponsor, comicbookdirect.com, comes in. They have all new releases, whether it's Marvel, DC, or independent publishers, and you can get them shipped directly to your house, which is especially handy for those of you who don't live near comic book shops. If you find a comic book series that you like and want to subscribe to, you absolutely can, and they would all be shipped to your address. Get 10% off each monthly delivery. And as an added bonus, the first 100 people who place a first-time order with my link down below will get 20% off their entire order. You can get trade paperbacks, individual issues, as well as manga and figures. They seriously have something for everyone. So click the link down below to check out what comicbookdirect.com can offer you. Now back to the video.
Part 142. This is Batman the White Knight. And it was originally published under DC Black Label, but don't worry friends, there won't be any Bat Dong in this one unlike other DC Black Label comics. Our story begins with Batman and Batgirl chasing down an escaped Joker, where they even hop the Batmobile over a frickin' ferry. And of course Batman catches up to the Joker and does, Batman things to him. And while Batman is brutally bashing in Joker's face, Joker tells him everything that's wrong in Gotham is Batman's fault. Which, I mean, if you really think about it for more than half a second, it kinda is. I mean, Batman could have put all of these villains away for life, or, you know, just taken them out. But let's continue. As Batman stands over Joker's beaten body, Joker says he's willing to prove it and take antipsychotic pills. So Batman does what Batman does, and force feeds Joker the pills, making him OD. Like, seriously, he's foaming at the mouth and Bruce just walks away. But he survives, and sues Batman. Messed up moments in comics that made us go, what the f? Part 143. This is Batman White Knight issue number 2. And after Batman beats the crap out of the Joker and makes him legitimately overdose on some antipsychotic pills, basically leaving him to pass away, he begins to slowly recover and adopts his true identity, Jack Napier, which is his original name in Batman 89. He sues the entire city of Gotham, GCPD, and the Batman, and wins, miraculously, getting off scot-free. All because the GCPD didn't have any actual evidence of any crimes he may have committed. And he goes back to his home, where he's greeted by Harley Quinn. And, wow, she really just wants to get down to business. But she's not a fan of this version of the Joker, and subsequently beats the crap out of him, making him lose all of his medicine. Well, that is until he was kicked in the face by the original Harley Quinn. Yes, friends. That's right. And back at her place, it's revealed he was so obsessed with Batman, he didn't even realize that she had left and was replaced by a girl impersonating Harley Quinn dressed like the Suicide Squad version. Talk about tunnel vision, damn. Part 144. I'm sure you're all familiar with the one and only Harley Quinn. But what if I told you there was another? Because in Batman White Knight, that's the case. The original Harleen Quinzel dons her original costume. But after what the Joker did to Jason Todd, she rightfully skips town. And he was 100% completely obsessed with Batman, so he didn't even realize she left. That's when this Harley Quinn comes in, otherwise known as Marion Drew, who originally was a bank teller at a bank the Joker robbed, who just kind of went along for the ride. You might think her costume looks similar to the newer designs of Harley, but realistically take away the tattoos and it's basically the Suicide Squad version. And after she tries to force herself on a newly rehabilitated Joker, the original Harley comes back and kicks the crap out of her. And if you're a little bit confused as to why Harley came back for the Joker, she's a little more rehabilitated now too. After all of that, Marion begins to spiral into madness, eventually updating her look and becoming a new character named the Neo Joker. Still a better Joker than this. Part 145. This is the X-Men character, Kitty Pryde, along with Colossus. But today we're just going to be focusing on Shadowcat herself. Kitty Pryde has been a key member of the X-Men for decades at this point. But let's just say that her storylines haven't always been so clean-cut. Let me explain. Long before she was in a committed relationship with Star-Lord, she was with Colossus. But let's talk about before they got together. This story takes place in Uncanny X-Men issue 165, where you can see the space parasites, the Brood. Yes, the same ones that eventually ended up impregnating her. Anyway, moving on. Kitty Pryde wakes up in the middle of the night terrified because she thinks she's going to pass away soon. But thankfully, Colossus is there to make her feel better. Or does he? Because you see, friends, Kitty Pryde says she doesn't want to shuffle off this mortal coil before doing the horizontal tango with someone. Specifically, Marvel's Man of Steel, Colossus. He says she is far too young for this, so he just makes out with her. Well, at least they didn't do it, since she's 13. Part 146. I recently did a video about Kitty Pryde, otherwise known as Shadowcat from the X-Men, detailing the time that she tried to get with Colossus while he was an adult and she was a child. And the fact that he was just saying it's not the proper time or place, but, you know, they're just playing by society's rules. Okay. What if I told you a little bit down the road, they do end up getting together? That's right, my friends. This is going to be taking place in Astonishing X-Men number 14. Our story starts off with Kitty Pryde seemingly phasing through the ceiling, before stealing a blanket, concealing herself, and running back upstairs. Okay, nothing too out of the ordinary so far. What's the twist? Well, it's actually quite simple, you see. She runs back upstairs to see a barely clothed Colossus in his normal form, saying she can't believe she phased, and this is all Colossus's fault. And he says, I like to think so, yes. Followed by the door shutting and laughter ensuing. Next morning, Wolverine can smell what went down, if you know what I mean. But he knew her since she was 13, that's just gross. Part 147. It goes without saying that the X-Men are no strangers to discrimination. I mean, if you look at it for more than half a second, you'll be able to see it, it's clear as day. From the creation of the Sentinels, made by Bolivar Trask, basically just to wipe out mutant life, all for the crimes of, you know, being mutants, to Magneto's tragic backstory and thoughts of superiority against Homo sapien. But don't worry, friends, as we've seen, he gets put on trial for his crimes. But it's fair to say that most humans in the Marvel Universe don't even see mutants as actual human beings, instead just viewing them as different monsters. It came to the point where humans made a derogatory term to refer to mutants, that being the shortened form, muties. And in X-Men 196, we see that word on full display, because Kitty Pryde, yep, going back to her again, goes into a local science lab where they find out she's a mutant. And say, you a mutie then, Pryde? Like Charles Xavier? She says, gee, I don't know, Phil. Are you Oh no, I'm not doing that. You had a good run, Kitty. Part 148. This is Superman versus Meshi. You might be thinking to yourself, this doesn't look like a standard Superman comic. And you'd be right. In fact, this is a Superman manga created in 2023 by DC Comics, where Superman falls in love with Japanese cuisine, and as you can see, it's so intense, he almost takes a guy out with his laser beams. But you might be thinking to yourself, Alex, what's the messed up part? I'm glad you asked. The series starts off with Superman fighting Steppenwolf in Japan. You know, the Herald of Darkseid. But something's off. This doesn't look like Steppenwolf from the comics. In fact, if he was comic accurate, he'd look exactly like this. Okay, so what's the big deal? It's a creator's interpretation of Steppenwolf. And I mean, it's a manga series. Of course it's gonna look a little different. But I want you to really take a good look at that Steppenwolf. Does he look familiar? He should, because that's the exact same design as Steppenwolf has in the Justice League. This manga came out in 2023. They could have used this design. But we get this PS2 looking fool. Part 149. In Adventures of Superman issue 500, Jonathan Kent suffers a massive heart attack. While in the hospital, he has a near-death experience where he visits the spirit of the recently deceased Superman. Kal-El says that Clark Kent is dead and he has to go to the other side. But it's not Jonathan's time yet. Jonathan is teleported back to his time in the Korean War, where he finds a downed airship and his brother, Harry, passing away. But this isn't where Harry died. He passed away in a farming accident, and all of a sudden, he's back at the farm. Falling through the floor, he hears his father's voice saying he'll help him out. But it wasn't his father, it was Blaze, daughter of the wizard Shazam. Thankfully, he's saved by Kismet, the protector of the DC Universe, who sends him to Krypton to rescue the spirit of Clark. Together, they fight and break free, but the spirit of Jor-El tries to stop them from leaving. But they overcome him, and together, their spirits return. Jonathan wakes up and says he made it. He brought Clark back. Lois confirms he's back. Can you cover the comic where Harley Quinn tries to take out Lord Deathman? Why, yes, my friend. Yes, I can.
Messed up moments in comics that made us go,
What the is that?
Part 150. Can't believe we made it this far. Obviously, we're all familiar with Harley Quinn. But one day she begins beefing with this man, otherwise known as Lord Deathman. He claims to be functionally immortal, and Harley puts that to the test, swinging her signature mallet and knocking his head off before he makes his great escape. His lackeys tell him, boss, you know you're just gonna walk into more of her traps, right? And he says, yes! So when he stumbles upon a pretty inconspicuous looking bounce house, he goes in, where he is covered in gravy, attacked by multiple animals. He goes to reach for somebody's hand, and at the last second, it turns out to be a fake arm attached to a freaking airplane. Hit with flaming arrows, blasted with rockets, struck through a shark tank, bisected with a chainsaw. Oh, what, you think you're gonna be safe with a parachute? Just kidding, it's a bomb. Which goes off without a hitch, and his parts fall into an active volcano. But technically, he's still alive, and has a shrine to Harley now because he's in love.
Like and subscribe.